afternoon. Welcome to Hawthorne Racecourse for a beautiful Thursday of thoroughbred action. We have a 9-race card. Emily Gullikson and Jim Miller. Wait, you're not Jim Miller.
No, I'm not.
Howard, welcome. You're filling in today as Jim is down at the Illinois State Fair. Excited to have you up here. Another time. We did this last year for a couple races. Well, you were here the whole card. I jumped in for a couple races. We're back on this Thursday as you're filling in and ready to tackle this card.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Thanks to everyone here at Hawthorne, yourself, Jim Miller, the Carey family, John Walsh, everyone for having me back. It's my second time here. I was here last year, as you said, covering the races with yourself and Jim, and I'm happy to be back today for a very interesting and challenging card, and the weather is absolutely gorgeous here in Chicago. They're fast and firm. Should be a fun day of racing.
Yeah, the weather's great. I'm glad you mentioned that. Some unfortunate weather around the country. I hope everybody's staying safe. But today here, we're fast and firm for this card. And just a few scratches. I also want to remind everybody that we're promoting the $1,000 Thursdays in the month of August. We can see that graphic on the screen. It's any wager at Hawthorne, $10, I shouldn't say any wager, but a $10 wager will earn you one entry, and then there's a drawing for that $1,000 wager in the following Thursday. So congrats last week to Tony V, who is betting $1,000 today on the house, so good luck to him, and good luck to everybody else that will play this week and take their shot next week for that $1,000. Well, Howard, I guess we'll jump into it because we got a 9-race card. And speaking of 9, we have a 1-9 right now in number 3, Miss River Rat, opening up the card on the turf in this conditional $30,000 claiming race. Whenever you have a heavy favorite, I think that's where you have to start. You have to start your analysis with that horse, because even if you pick the horse on top, you might not be expecting 1-9 and then saying, okay, I think they're the most likely winner, but 1-9 is kind of short. Maybe I need to shuffle some things around a little bit. So I think both you and I will agree, you kind of said it under your breath, so I'm picking up on that cue that Miss River Rat number 3 is probably the best horse in the race, but is coming off a win with a very favorable trip. Last out, was able to save ground, make that first move, and prior to that was running in some good races, just coming up a little bit short in allowance company. So as far as your assessment, do you think 1-9 deserving favorite to start off the card?
Well, certainly Miss River Rat should be the favorite. 1-9 seems very low to me. I think this horse should be probably somewhere around 3-5, 4-5. I mean, she's only had 3 lifetime starts on turf. As you just mentioned, her last win was excellent, but she got an absolutely perfect trip just in behind some speed and went on with it. She might get that same trip again, Emily.
Exactly. That's what you have to consider with today's race shape, that inside draw, be able to save ground and take first run. And then, yeah, you're banking on, but, looking at this race and the conditions, I think if some of the other horses run back to their best efforts, they're probably on par with Miss River Rat. So while she has the tactical speed, while she has form, while she has those awesome connections, that's part of the reason why you're seeing the price. Did you look to an alternative in this race? Look at a few others?
I did. Patty Miller, trainer Patty Miller has 2 in here. She has the 4, Wanda Strong, and the 6. She's wonderful. I mentioned the 4. Now, maybe last time was the time on Wanda Strong, who won with Victor Santiago, who might have had the choice of those 2 mounts. Of course, Loveberry is excellent and is on the 6, but Santiago stays with Wanda Strong, the number 4. One last time and almost 8-1 wiring the field. Based on the pace projector, Emily, I think she's going to sit behind this time. The rails are also down, just to mention everyone at home on the turf, so that might favor close a little more than speed, which usually plays well on this turf course. So I'm going to take a chance with Wanda Strong, fully admitting that Miss River Rat, and if you're a fan of poker, you probably like Miss River Rat because of the name. But I'm going to take a chance with Wanda Strong to upset the field in the first race.
I'm actually going to look at the other Patty Miller runner, number 6. So she's wonderful. I respect Wanda Strong, and for everything that you mentioned, makes a lot of sense in here. But I thought She's Wonderful would kind of sneak away the longer of the 2, and she's kind of a sneaky condition play because today's race, it is a conditional 30,000. There's some restrictions in that, but a non-winner's a 3 as well, which many fit, and She's Wonderful has more than 3 wins. So she kind of sneaks in with some of those races that don't count towards eligibility. You mentioned the rider change. I think she has similar numbers, can get a similar type outside stalking trip. Jareth Loveberry, nothing wrong with that. I also gave a mention to number 2, What's to Do. One that's going to come off a really dominant win where she was facing that 17-5 non-winners at 2. Has some back numbers, maybe not quite as proven, but coming back to those numbers would be right on par. So again, we'll cycle back to this race. We're currently seeing 2 to 5. Probably expect that favorite going on. I also just want to mention as a late change here, I don't have all the announcements yet, but Rachel Savinsky will be off her mount, so we'll update as we go on today's card. As far as, so we'll move right along into race 2. We're ready. We'll go to race 2. It's another conditional 12-5 claiming event in today's race, and kind of looking at the early doubles, it seems like number 1, Electric Charge, is going to be the favorite in here. I took a slightly different direction in this race. Electric Charge is another race that's kind of one of those sneaky non-winners of 3 conditions, and while he is technically a non-winners of 3, one of those was by disqualification, so a subtle change there makes a lot of sense. I thought the pace was also interesting in here, where Euclid Avenue, who kind of blew the turn last out, kind of has those weird quirks to say the least. At the same time, could just be the controlling speed.
Yeah.
And anytime you're lone speed, that could be very tough.
I have a little history with Euclid Avenue. I used to have a small piece of Euclid Avenue with the wonderful people at Crowns Way Racing. Not only does he have trouble on turns, but last time he was actually pushed out on the turn and then even went further, but he could be lone speed here, so I wouldn't completely discount him. I went with Rocket Hotshot. I do like the jockey upgrade. It's a slight upgrade, but I like Anmer Santos, who is 17%. Certainly Giles having a good meet, 11%, but I think this is a bit of a jockey upgrade. Rocket Hotshot, not spectacular, but very consistent. Will sit that inside trip in behind the speed. You see a lot of seconds and thirds in his form, but I didn't think that this race came up overly difficult for the level. I'm just hoping Rocket Hotshot sits that nice inside trip, and maybe with a minor jockey upgrade might have a small effect in this race.
Yeah, and just to kind of key off that, there's the stats and then there's the trends. And Ademar Santos has picked up some mounts, taken over, and it's really made a difference. And with a lot of times these horses, one length is all the difference. That's all the difference in the race. I went the same way with Rocket Hotshot, even with Euclid Avenue being able to kind of skirt clear. Rocket Hotshot has some tactical speed and should just be sitting right off there. So if that one's up to his old tricks, Rocket Hotshot could just scoot right on by.
Well, number 6, Paths to Success, will probably take a lot of money. But you know, Emily, this horse is 2 for 44. I know the horse can win, and Paths to Success is consistent, but not exactly living up to his name, being 2 for 44. So although the horse can win, I'm always going to be against those kind of horses.
Yeah, and we'll see how the public, because he's kind of cold right now, but anything can change as we're still 26 minutes to post. Moving on to race number 3, 5.5 furlong sprint, claiming $5,000 non-winner to 2 for 3-year-old and up. We have a big scratch in this race. Scratch number 6, Sawyer Fox, a horse that was kind of one of those questionable, what do you do with a horse off the layoff lines and the big class drop, but we don't have to worry about that here. But the challenges become a little bit different when you don't have that standout horse. Now you're making a case, and I think in this race, it can come down to pace more than being the best horse, because I think if you're trying to find the best horse in this race, you're really going to come up with any of the 6 because they're so similar.
Yeah, I had all these stats ready with Catalano off the layoff and was ready to bet against Sawyer Fox. I mean, Wayne Catalano just had his, 3,000th win. He's one of the most successful trainers in the history of Illinois racing, and it was just a weird spot for me, but that one is out. I'm going to go with the number 1, Crown Royal Kid, for a trainer coming from FanDuel, who is 1 for 4 at the new claim in the last 5 years. Obviously, it's a very small sample size, but he won with a horse called Jack Van Berg in June of 23 at 5 to 1. And Crown Royal Kid looks to sit just right off of the Ridge, number 2, who will most likely be the favorite. I would mainly use those 2 in any horizontal play, but I'm going to take a little shot of the Crown Royal Kid to maybe upset the Ridge in race 2.
Yeah, I think this is a race where maybe the board can create some separation as well, because again, we have all those horses that are so close in form and consistency and can work out a trip, can make a price play. I went to a slight price play looking at a few horses in here with number 4 Stolich, one that has some back numbers that fit on par, and the overall numbers are lighter for number 5 Red Moscato. The change in class is just notable. It's just when you have that kind of new face at the level with some progressive form. He's not completely off form. If he was completely off form, we'd be concerned, but maybe just taking that drop and being a new face. But we'll come back around, because I think that race just got a lot trickier with the scratch, and even for the riders of how they're going to ride with the 2 inside horses likely showing early speed. Now things stay on the hard level, I think, for race number 4 as we go maiden claimers. $20,000 maiden claiming event for the 3-year-old and up fillies and mares, 7.5 furlongs on the turf. That is a 2-turn distance where we have a field of 7 in here. And I mean, I could make a case for every single horse in this race without question. So to me, it's going to come down to getting a little bit of a price in here and maybe a horse that's a little bit overlooked by the public, maybe doesn't look so pretty. I thought that would be Ernestina, though is currently 5-2 on the morning line. Sometimes we'll see. Sometimes people will say, oh, they're 5-2. I'm going to go elsewhere. Then all of a sudden it drifts up. So this is that type of race. Did you have some separation in here? Or have one stand out more than another?
I thought this was an interesting race. First of all, James Graham is here to ride for the first time for the Hawthorne meet. Gets 4 bounds today, so it's great to see James Graham. I've always been a fan of his. And he's on my top choice, the number 6, Makiva. Now, there is a race on July 21st, which I think is worth watching, where there are 3 coming out of that race. Makiva was really closing after having a little bit of trouble on the turn and found room late, but did come on nicely to finish 3rd over Babe in the Woods. And I believe Save Cracker Sue was also in that race, the 3 and the 7. I'm against the 3 and the 7 this race. I thought Makiva, the number 6, by far ran the best race. It was also Makiva's first time on turf. So this 3-year-old filly by Mucho Macho Man of a Sadler Wells mare should continue and improve with James Graham. Hopefully gets enough speed in front of him. Another horse I'd like to mention, the number 5, Madeline Attack, who was coming out of the Ernestina race. I personally, Emily, thought that Madeline Attack actually ran better than Ernestina. The short comments in the past performance don't really tell the full story. I thought Madeline Attack had to wait on the inside, had to study a bit, and came on late. So she's not exactly a win machine, but she's sort of new to the turf scene. And I thought it ran better than Ernestina. So I'm going to go with number 6, Makiva, in a wide open race where I would definitely spread in the horizontals.
Yeah, just a couple notes on that. The thing with Makiva, I agree. I think if you're taking anybody out of the race, that's the horse. Now, where you want a little bit of value, at least for me, where I was like, maybe I'm going to let the board decide, is just the constant pattern of breaking slow. And I think coming off that race that kind of caught everybody's eye, where you have the trip, you still have those pattern of slow starts, that until they prove otherwise, they're creatures of habit. We can't expect that in here. Madeline Attack, as you mentioned, the trouble trip there, but was inside, which was a little bit favorable. The barn was hot. The other one we haven't even mentioned is number 1, Perfect Manhattan, who I actually don't mind stretching out in distance from a physical standpoint, should handle that added ground. It was one of the things I noted last out. Just kind of looked like was a little bit short for the distance, just based on the physicality. We'll have the added ground in here. So a really tough race, and one we're going to have to dissect horse by horse and maybe get some clues on the board as well. Race number 5, we'll go back to the main track. It's funny because Jim's like, I don't really like carding, or I rarely card the turf back to back, but we had a few. But we'll go back to the main track and conditional $5,000 claiming event, going 5.5 furlongs. The 5.5 furlongs is always tricky because it's tough to be a closer, and in this race you have a lot of horses that want to be on or near the lead, and then you have probably the most likely winner in the race in number 3, Alanabi. Is that where you started and finished with Alanabi?
Yeah, I sort of looked at Alanabi. I think that horse is one of 2 that are more likely winners in this race. Alanabi gets Jared Loveberry, is in very good form. There's no reason why that horse can't win. I took a little bit shot of the number 2, One Way Home. Now this horse is 5-2, so I'm not exactly taking a big stand. I'm not big fans of 9-year-olds. They just, as they get older, they don't tend to be as consistent. But this one seems to be.
He's speaking from experience.
Yeah, exactly. this one seems to be a little of a yin yang type, right? I mean, the horse didn't run very well last time at FanDuel. 2 back, 6 furlongs, wired the field. 3 back, not so good. 4 back, wired the field. And Julio Felix takes them out. I just have a feeling they're going to send One Way Home. And just like the name says, try to win one way on the lead. I didn't think it was a very strong race underneath that. So I'm going to take a chance with One Way Home to beat Alanabi. I'd be a bit surprised if anyone else won that race, but it's pretty wide open, I suppose.
Number 6, Code to Win, is kind of the one factor in there, because the back numbers make this horse a complete standout. Now, as far as getting back to those races, we haven't seen it this year. There really hasn't been much excuse. Going back to the race on July 21st, did make a wide move in there, but then was a little bit one pace. These connections are certainly capable, so that's another one to keep on the radar. Now we go from the dirt back to the turf in this sprint race. It's a non-winners of one allowance, going 5 furlongs on the turf, 3-year-old and up runners. A tricky race because not a lot of horses have experience at this 5 furlong distance on the turf, and 5 furlongs on the turf is a specialty. I feel like it's like one of those, like a 1-turn mile or a 7 furlong distance. It's kind of a specialist at this condition. I give a look to number 3. What do you think, Mark? 1 and 2 for Larry Ravelli. Now, as far as his return back on May 18th, he presented as a sprinter. He looked like he kind of lost his race before it started, and they've been trying to get him on the turf. And even going back to last year, he broke his maiden extremely impressively on debut. It was a private purchase then. They actually had considered running in the Tyro Stakes, which is a turf sprint at Monmouth Park. So an intention to run on the turf, has that early speed, has some upside. I'm glad they keep this horse protected. There was another time they had considered running for a tag, so being a little bit more patient, and Jareth Loveberry on the call. So trying to look at that slightly new face in a face of kind of the known factors in here that didn't really overly excite me, especially for that 5 furlong turf sprint distance.
Yeah, the breeding on what do you think, Mark, is certainly good enough. The factors, the sire is 14% turf routing and sprinting. So anytime you Larry Ravelli and it's a 5 furlong race, you have to be aware. I'm going with Strange Arrange. When I see a 5 furlong turf sprint, Emily, I'm not sure where to go. I just go to what I think is the speed of the speed. And I don't mind the outside post going 5 furlongs. I know some people say, well, the horse might be wide, but the jock can just simply break and look to the left, in this case, Chris Amy, and make a decision. And if Strange Arrange breaks well, this horse is absolutely going. And I think if he gets to the top, he's going to be very tough. The sire Hootenanny won over $800,000 on the turf. The dam won close to $100,000 on the turf sprinting. So although this horse has only had one lifetime start on the turf, it has the breeding to do it. It has the early speed to do it in a race that's very difficult to figure. So I'll just go with the speed with Strange Arrange from the outside.
I was a little negative on Strange Arrange, not for that, because I think that's probably how the horse wins the race, just makes the top and then is able to kick clear and everybody else is chasing. But started to see some decline. The front wraps were added last out, so that's something I want to keep an eye on in here. And sometimes with those, there's some recent wins and speed figures that would get attention. So I was like, okay, if this horse gets a lot of support, I think it's going to create value on some of the others. A horse like number 1, Mahoney Road, he's another one that has some current form. They're going to keep him protected after pairing wins and claiming company. So it does have to handle that step up in class. But he has some turf experience, has a show finish going way back in his sophomore season that maybe can just kind of step up as an older horse. And then the wild card is number 5, Talon's Time. With the surface switch, move to the circuit. It's also going to take on open company, but as far as class, it's closer to a lateral move, so I don't mind that, and the numbers stack up as well as any in this field.
If I could just mention one other thing with number 2, Give Me the Candy, who's by Twirling Candy, comes out of a very live race. There were 3 next winners coming out of that race, 2 back when he was on the turf. So I think number 2, Give Me the Candy, is a bit interesting as well in this spot.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of depth in there. Another one that could maybe show a little bit of tactical speed given the distance. We'll move on to race 7, trying to make sure we can get everything in before we get cycled back around. Race 7's 62.5, maiden claiming event, 3-year-old and up fillies and mares, another 5.5 furlong race. Where did you end up going in here? We have 2 horses that are, or maybe even 3 horses that are likely to take a lot of money with the 3 inside runners. Did you look outside that trio or kind of try to separate from there?
I thought number 3, Flathead Finale, who is 5-2 morning line from Jim's morning line, would probably be the favorite. But I wouldn't discount number 4, Lost Sunset, because I didn't see a lot of early speed in this race, and I know that she's already 5 years old and she hasn't won yet. But this is the kind of race where if she can get loose, and she's not been able to done that yet, I thought Lost Sunset is a bit interesting in the spot, again, for Chris Amy. So I'm going to go with 3-4 in this race. I think I have the 1 in second here, or third, excuse me. 3-4-1.
She very well could, and it could come down to rider tactics on number 2, Good Magic Woman, if they try to send, because she's a flow upgrade from her most recent start. Even Sweet Smilet has some sneaky early speed, is drawn outside. Number 1, Irish Spark. just seemed to move up at the level, but caught Peggy's way, who was just a little too good on the day as a front-running winner. And then I had to give a mention to number 7, Baba's Girl, and I saw Jim pick this horse as well, because if I'm looking at the plot and I'm looking at where Flathead Finale is, who I agree with you, I think is extremely legit, Baba's Gal looks exactly the same. So if I'm talking about a horse that's going to be 5-2 versus 15-1, I'm gonna absolutely upgrade that horse. I mean, I'm not a math teacher, but I know what's greater than or equal to. But you are a math teacher.
I think I know a math teacher. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. All right. I'm a daughter of 2.
Oh, well, terrific. Good, wonderful. I love the teachers out there.
The apple didn't land on that part of the tree, or whatever that saying is. All right, race number 8, nor poetry. Okay, race number 8, 2 more to go. In the pre-race analysis, allowance optional claiming event, $50,000 condition, 1 mile and 70 yards on the main track. We have a few scratches in here, which I know it took out your top pick, which always has to reshuffle, but I think a few of the scratches as well changed the race shape, especially from the inside with background. Ricky Bobby had some early speed, who's no longer going to participate, and I just think that changes everything so much and moves things around. I was looking at a horse, and I still am, just from complete value, and I'm going to take a shot with number 6, Go Emmy, which might be the reason that Walter Rodriguez is in town to ride. There's some really sneaky form cycle patterns on this horse, and has back numbers that would make them a fit using a similar pattern in the past, but has to get that turf from off the pace, and there's not as much pace in this race. So after Ricky Bobby scratching, where did you kind of default to and re-handicap the race?
I was so excited to talk about Ricky Bobby, and if you're a fan of the movie Talladega Nights, you know Ricky Bobby was ready to shake and bake today. But he's not playing today. With background, the number 1 scratch completely changed the pace complexion. I just defaulted to Novogratz the Great, who just looked really good last time. I know it was an off-the-turf dirt race, which usually I think those numbers can be a bit inflated or overrated, because there's horses in there that are meant, for turf. They're still running on the dirt. But I went with Novogratz the Great. I think Arden was going to sit a great trip, as he did 2 back when he went by Novogratz the Great. But I think Ardenwood prefers to be on the outside of horses, so I'm very interested to see what James Graham does, because I think he might let the 3 go and then come to the outside. I just don't think it sets up for a closer anymore, and I was really looking forward to that pace scenario.
Yeah, it could change everything in rider tactics, but as you mentioned, James Graham, we'll move on to the finale, maiden special weight, going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf, the 3-year-old and up, and I think this is the reason that James Graham is in town here, to ride number 2, Golden Town, and I think intent is so much of this game and certainly makes sense on Golden Town. But another horse that tends to make that run from off the pace, so we'll have to see how the turf plays with that type of closing style, because that was a slight knock, but we'll see how everything plays. I thought number 1, Pilkington, was very logical, but really my top pick in here, License to Steal. His races, he presents every bit of a turf runner. I think this horse is extremely live. They're finally able to get him to the turf.
I love License to Steal in this spot.
Love it.
Right, Dam Sire Ford Prada went over $1 million. This horse wants turf so badly. But not only that, it has a lot of early speed. I'm thinking maybe wire to wire at a bit of a price. I agree. I think License to Steal could absolutely live up to his name today.
And then also a reminder, in race 9, we still have that high 5 carryover, just a little over 3,100. With 11 minutes to post, let's click over to race 1. We'll talk about these horses in the paddock. I know we went a little long, but hopefully we have enough time to talk about these runners. It's a warm day, so they'll keep them in the paddock. Still your favorite in number 3, Miss River Rat, currently 1-2, was 1-9. We were talking about the horse early on. As we mentioned, a deserving favorite in this race. It's just really going to come down to the price in this field. If you want to start off these early wagers with 1-2, whether that's a win bet or starting your place pick 8 or pick 5, it's a short price, likely to be highly used in here. We'll get a look at her in the paddock there. A horse that, as you mentioned in the pre-race show, coming off a win, had a favorable trip, was able to save ground, get that first run, and similar, going 2 back in the non-winners 1 allowance win, was able to really get the same trip and might find the same trip in here. So there's no knocks other than that short price.
Yeah, and as a horizontal player, as you well know, I like to play pick 3s, 4s, 5s, the pick 8. I'm curious to get your opinion on what you do with a 1-2 shot in the first leg of a horizontal, because the easy answer to be, well, just go ahead and single that horse and move on. But if you want to try to get a little contrarian and sneaky, you could toss the 3 completely and try to find a price which would really accentuate the horizontal payout. So I'm just curious what you like to do in general in these types of spots.
Well, I think you kind of said it, but in kind of two different ways. Is there's really two approaches. Is that you're going to sink on the 1 to 5 and move on with the 1 to 5, or you're going to use the other, but you're not going to do both. Right? So you're going to either make that decision that I'm going to use the 1 to 5 horse and move on, or I'm going to say I'm not going to use this horse. If it doesn't work out, I'm looking at the pick 4 in race 2. And just based on the board right now and the horse that's walking right in front of the camera that we'll talk about, number 6, Miss Wonderful, who's currently 15 to 1, I would give this horse a look and I would use it on the ticket. It's going to be a big separator. Is she the most likely winner? Probably not, but that's part of the reason why you're getting 15 to 1 right now. She's coming into this race, 3rd start of the form cycle. This condition allows non-winners of 3, but if you've won for under 20,000 or 17.5, then you're able to compete. So she fits those conditions. She's 3rd off, makes a good appearance in here, looked like a prep back on June 30th, and then going back to the July 21st race, probably still needed the race, was outside horses, uncovered, looks extremely fit in here, gets that rider change, Jareth Loveberry aboard, no front wraps, again, positive physical appearance, but Patty Miller has 2 in here, and so I'll let you kind of talk about number 4, who is the other Patty Miller runner, who I think you're trying to get creative with in number 4, Wanda Strong.
Yeah, Wanda Strong ran very well last time. Looks very nice in the paddock, ears pricked, waiting to hear her commands. She's only 5 years old. Has not been on turf. Actually, has been on turf 12 times, 9 times the money. So she's a model of consistency. And I just see no reason why Victor Santiago cannot work out a good trip, and she'll break. Maybe she'll go to the lead. I don't expect her to go to the lead. According to the pace projector by time form, she's not going to be on the lead, but we'll just have to see. It's just the kind of race where I don't think Miss River Rat is so, imposing in this race that she should be 1 to 5. And based on the question that I asked you a little while ago, I'm going 4 deep in the pick 5 here to start the day, and I'm not going to use the 3. And if Miss River Rat wins, I'll tip my cap to her and just move on to the next race.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you try to do too many things, right? Use and then
For
go
sure.
on. Another one I wanted to get a look at right now who's taking some action is number 2, What's to Do. And What's to Do is going to come in fresh off a 2-month break, but also come in off an extremely dominant win back on June 8th, where the weather conditions were not ideal. There was late rain. She ended up brushing with place and making her move to the wire, but was just extremely dominant that day. Even though it's just a 1-length victory, from a visual standpoint, she was much the best in there. Had to deal with a little bit of adversity. And as far as the turf, she actually started her career on the turf. So I don't mind this. I don't mind this move. I don't mind them sticking on the turf. And a lot of those races, when you see her overall career record, those races are based in Kentucky. They're really tough maiden special weight races at Kentucky Downs, Churchill Downs, a few at Horseshoe Indy that are in the mix with some minor finishes. And those numbers, just isolating those races, stack up on par, and they're also faster than what she ran back on June 8th. So you can project some upside in here, and going back to those races on What's to Do, they would sit right in line with Miss River Rat. So she just ticked down a little bit, even money on one, 5 to 2 on the other.
People are listening to you, Emily, because she just ticked down to 5 to 2. I just want to mention one other horse.
Yeah.
Number 1, Muse. I don't know if she can run anymore, to be very honest, but boy, I mean, if this race was 2 years ago, she would lay over this field. Now, that was a long time ago. She's been on the dirt lately. If she can remember what it's like to run on the turf at 30 to 1, I mean, I don't think this horse is completely impossible. I actually used her as one of 4 horses in this pick 4 just because she has great back form, and she's been dirtied up on dirt lately. So I think she's going to be aggressive from the inside with Walter Rodriguez, who's certainly not here to lose races today. And
Sure.
I'm just curious to see if Muse can run at all. If she can, this might be the spot where she does it.
Well, the strategy, if you're playing as a favorite, who when we were having a conversation earlier was 1 to 9, is now a 6 to 5. So things are moving around a little bit. You might have to reshuffle. But if your strategy is still the same, you're making a case for a 33 to 1 shot. Again, not necessarily the best horse in the race, but going back to those prior races, those races would make her competitive. She hasn't quite been the same since coming off the layoff this year, back in January at Turfway Park. But even those races at Turfway Park on the synthetic, they're pretty comparable to the rest of the field here. Now, as far as racing on dirt, I think that's more of a factor of condition, because there's just not many turf races that are at the lower level. So sometimes you just kind of have to put the horse where they fit. But second off the layoff, is wheeling back in just a week. And actually today's race par is pretty comparable to the race that she ran in just 1 week ago. So closer to a lateral move, if there is a move forward. It looks like we're going to get riders up here. Any last chance for any other horses that you want to mention as they're heading out?
I don't think so. I think,
All right.
again, Miss River Rats is the clear favorite, but I don't think she has to win.
All right. Well, good luck to everybody. A reminder, we've got 4 minutes to the first post. The horses are heading out onto the track. This is the start of the place pick 8 wager as well as the pick 5. We'll see you back for race 2. Good luck.
Coming on the track for today's first race to go 7 1/2 furlongs on a firm turf course with the rails set at 0 feet. Scratch 8 Princess Tenko, scratch 9 Legally Lucky. We have a late jockey change. Rachel Slavinsky will not be riding today. There'll be change of riders on all of her scheduled mounts. In the first race here, number 7, Lady Helena, make the jockey Ola Fernandez. Waive the apprentice allowance, make the weight 118 pounds. Ola Fernandez rides 7, Lady Helena. Prating her they are 1 Mused, Walter Rodriguez in the saddle. 2 is What's to Do with Israel Hernandez aboard. 3 Miss River Rat, David Cohen. 4 is Wanda Strong, Victor Santiago. 5 Bally Baby will be handled by Edamar Santos. 6 She's Wonderful, Jarrett Loveberry aboard. 7 Lady Helena, note the jockey change, Ola Fernandez riding number 7. Once again, waive the apprentice allowance, make the weight 118 pounds. 3 minutes till post. I'll remind you the dirt track is fast, turf is firm with the rails set at 0 feet for this first race. Here are the rest of the rider changes, replacing Rachel Slavinsky today. In the third race, number 4 Stolich, make the jockey Edamar Santos. Waive the apprentice allowance, make the weight 122 pounds. Edamar Santos to ride number 4 Stolich. In the sixth race today, number 7 Demand Ransom, make the jockey Edamar Santos. Waive the apprentice allowance, make the weight 122 pounds. Edamar Santos to ride 7 Demand Ransom. Now you're caught up on the jockey changes replacing Rachel Slavinsky today. 2 minutes till post, 2 minutes. Racing fan, may I have your attention, please, on the advice of the track veterinarian at the starting gate. Stewards are going to scratch one mused. Scratch one mused. Refunds of a win play show, exacted, trifectas, superfectas, daily doubles with one mused in this first race. If you have one mused in your pick 3, pick 5, or place pick 8, you're entitled to a refund up until the start of the race. If you elect not to refund, you receive the off-time favorite. Once again, late scratch, scratch number 1 mused. Racing fans, we thank you for joining us wherever it may be across the betting network. It's going to be a gorgeous weekend here. We should have Fast and Firm today and our next racing program on Sunday. Today the rail's set at 0 feet on the turf course. Dirt track is fast. We have 9 races today, 1 carryover pool to report. In the 9th race, high 5 carryover, $3,110. We are close to starting time for race 1 at Hawthorne. Racing fans, little time remains for you to wager on today's first race. The first race features place pick 8 wagering and early pick 5 wagering. Less than a minute moving towards the gate for race 1 at Hawthorne. Racing fans are at the starting gate for today's first race here at Hawthorne. Horses moving on to the turf course to begin the loading procedure. Once again, that late scratch 1 mused is out. Field of 6. Horses are entering the starting gate. Last 2 to go in will be Wanda Strong and Lady Helena. Waiting for Lady Helena. She's in. They're all in the gate. They're off. Wanda Strong going out for the lead. She's wonderful moving up towards the inside, Miss River Rat. Then from the outside, hustling up, Lady Helena, the trailing pair, What's to Do, and Belly Baby as they make their way around the first turn. Wanda Strong opens up a 2.5 length advantage. And on to the backstretch. Wanda Strong now by 3. Miss River Rat second. Lady Helena on the outside third. She's wonderful, shuffled back to 4th. Belly Baby moves up on the outside 5th. What's to Do 6th. They're covered by 7 or 8 lengths after a quarter, not posted. And on mid backstretch they go. Your leader, Wanda Strong, 2.5 lengths. Miss River Rat racing in second along the rail. She's wonderful, looks for room. And then on the outside, Lady Helena. Towards the inside, What's to Do. The gray Bally Baby trails. They move around the far turn. Wanda Strong's had the best of it and still does. Leads by 2.5 lengths. Miss River Rat second. And then on the outside, Lady Helena third. She's wonderful, trying to advance along the rail fourth. Around the turn, they're in the stretch. Wanda Strong comes off the turn at 2 on top. Then on the outside, Miss River Rat second. She's wonderful, gaining along the inside third. What's to Do tips to the center of the course in fourth. Less than a furlong to go. Wanda Strong still leads. Miss River Rat coming on again. Wanda Strong, Miss River Rat closing. Wanda Strong's going to get there. Wanda Strong, yes. Miss River Rat, then it was She's Wonderful and What's to Do. In today's first race, 4 Wanda Strong finished first, 3 Miss River Rat second, 6 She's Wonderful third, 2 What's to Do fourth. 4-3-6-2 is posted. It's unofficial. We'll have the running time for you in a moment. The running time, 7.5 furlongs, firm turf, 129.68, 129.68. Returning the unofficial winner for Wanda Strong. Wanda Strong is owned by Gianni Lee, trained by Patty Miller, ridden to victory by Victor Santiago. Wanda Strong is an Illinois foaled 5-year-old mare by Wicked Strong of the straight line mare Where's Wanda. Wanda Strong is bred in Illinois by her owner, Jan Ely. Congratulations to Jan Ely. Her entrance finished 1-3 in this race. Still unofficial. Today's first race is official. Running time 129.68. Prices in a moment. The $1 exacta 4-3, $3.60. 50-cent trifecta 4-3-6, $8.85. 20-cent superfecta 4-3-6-2, $6.18. The second race today is Win Play Show Exacta Trifecta Superfecta. Starts another daily double, another pick 3, and today's 50-cent early pick 4. Here are the changes in your early pick 4 races. In the second race, scratch 5 Cowboys Dream, scratch 5 Cowboys Dream, no jockey changes, no overweights. The third race, 1 Crown Royal Kid, make the jockey Victor Santiago, the weight's okay, Victor Santiago rides 1 Crown Royal Kid. 4 Stolich, make the jockey Edamar Santos. Waive your apprentice allowance, make the weight 122 pounds, Edamar Santos rides 4 Stolich. Scratch 6 Sawyer Fox, scratch 6 Sawyer Fox. Fourth race, 1 Perfect Manhattan, make the jockey Frank Reyes, the weight's okay, Frank Reyes rides 1 Perfect Manhattan. Fifth race, scratch 1 Hatchet Creek, scratch 1 Hatchet Creek. 4 Can Man Do, make the jockey Frank Reyes, the weight's okay, Frank Reyes rides 4 Can Man Do. 7 Demand Ransom, make the jockey Edamar Santos, waive the apprentice allowance, make the weight 122 pounds, Edamar Santos rides 7 Demand Ransom. Don't forget that fifth race starts the late pick 5. Those are the changes in your early pick 4 races. Post time for race 2 in 19 minutes at 2:41. In all cases, make your selections early. Thank you.